Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the Clarion Call Masterclass. Really appreciate your time and interest to join in. I think as most of you are aware, I think the Clarion Call, the startup contest organized by IIM Calcutta Alumni Association Mumbai this year has been a big success with great level of participation across partnerships, sponsors, investors, incubators, angel network, and most importantly, the startups like you and the founders who has been really putting up new things to get this planet a better one and bring good stuff to people. And that's how the whole journey begins, and really appreciate on that note of entrepreneurship from all of you. And welcome to this session today. This is one of the master classes that we organized. And like you are aware, just a quick introduction about myself. So I'm one of the IIM Calcutta alumnus, and that is how I have been involved with Clarion Call. This is our 4th edition. We started this in 2016. Personally, I have been on my entrepreneurial journey for this is the 10th year, and we will share our experience and exchange notes on that. And I've been very passionate about building great product, great business, and also to share whatever along the journey that can benefit others. So this is a pursuit towards that. With that note, I'll begin this presentation. So quickly coming on to this, it looks very obvious that we are talking about managing cash and burn for early stage survival. But this topic and today's discussion is really focused around really early stage startups and companies. I think there might be entrepreneurs who are already in an evolved stage, but we'd like to get their thoughts as we progress. So coming on to this, so I think cash anyway is like oxygen, right? So for an entrepreneur, managing cash is like breathing. Everybody runs with it, and hence it's really a life skill. So when we decide to talk on a topic like this, so what's the big deal? So the truth is that unlike the best things in life, this is not unlimited, and that's brings us to a discussion to explore and understand what goes behind and what is it that I have gone through in my entrepreneurial journey. Any entrepreneur, I mean, whatever stage of evolution you are in, whatever stage of company you're building, if you ask an entrepreneur anytime, the successful ones and not so successful ones, is there anything that they could have done better? And you'll always get a big answer, and that says yes. And guess what comes out of it? 3 things they feel they always could have done better. And this is universal feeling. And like all of us feel that when we look back. One, I feel that I would have managed my cash better, and my time, and of course my team. So I think this is so universal. And that's why this really begs some attention. And an early stage of a company building, this can bring a lot of perspective. So in building a business, most of the variables are heuristic, right? You keep iterating, you keep improvising, finding out a hack, quick solutions. And those solutions, variables get better as with every iteration and optimization. So what's the big deal? I mean, you go through a company, you build a company, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you will learn all these things. And that's how it's so unique to your journey. You'll go through the heuristic. So what's the big deal about managing cash or burn? The difference is that when you look back, you feel, I wish I could have done it differently. So this is irreversible. And hindsighting on this has no real value add. Is one line of thinking, but to me, what I've experienced and what I have gone through, it's really a myth. Cash needs to be dealt differently. It needs to be managed differently. Now, what's cash really? I mean, do you really count? Do you really measure every day morning? In fact, a small entrepreneur running an micro SME or something like that maybe looks into the cash book every day and makes payments and all. But running a startup and busy building stuff, what are you looking at? What does it cash mean? So I think the key thing I've realized is that what exactly is your relationship with your cash? I mean, are you really watching it? Are you measuring it? Or it's in hindsight, at the end of the month you go and find out, oh wow, what is left? So is it really the rear view mirror that's working for you? And this is a very, very fundamental shift which can make a huge difference in terms of the perspective. And sometimes, what's the cash left for you? Is it really in the bank? Is that real? In that sense, is that really the cash left for you? Nobody else owns that money, or you don't owe anything out of that. So I think these are the things that those get missed out. You see certain numbers on the bank statement and it makes you feel good, but what goes behind that and what's lying underneath is very different. So I think today we will talk a little bit about what really goes into the burn, what is the real anatomy of burn, and where it can be misleading or where it can get out of our sight. So I think there are three aspects as we see as an entrepreneur that impacts. One is the whole concept of the time, the cash flow, how it is coming, the unit economics, and the speed at which the cash is coming. That's also an important. We will go into those nuances and learn about that. The second part is what's the nature of business, because all different businesses, different business model, different go-to-market, different consumer needs. So there are many nuances. So there's no universal truth or formula or rule for managing this. So we will talk about that. And of course, the most important thing along the journey is at what stage of the business you are in, and hence how do you need to look at managing your burn. So we will deal into these three dimensions today, and then once we will take your queries, questions towards the end of the session. So coming to the first one, unit economics and the volatility. So do you really have a business equation and unit economics for your startup? We all start with that because that's how the plan, the Excel, the spreadsheets, where the passion blends with the numbers. That is where the genesis of a startup takes place. That's where the birthplace is. And then sometime those spreadsheets are there and just for there. So do you really have a stated unit economics for your business? And are you really working on it? Or it's a discovery? So where we start versus where we are after a 1 year, 2 year, 4 quarters, 3 quarters, that needs a real alignment and maybe a reality check. So what's really your stated unit economics for the business? What are we working on? Is everything is fluid in that equation? Are all the variables changing all the time? Like, last month was something, this month is something, next month is going to be something different, and all of them are dynamic and they're changing? Or, are we also trying to iterate and improve each one of them all the time? So I think this is an important aspect, because we really need to choose the big ones and go after them. So this is just an illustrative one. Little simple maths. All of you know and you're aware, this is mainly to drive how things can change and what are the things we need to be careful. So let's assume your business, your revenue is 100 rupees units, your returns, reversals, taxes, all that stuff gone. So your net revenue is 78, your cost of acquisition is 60 right now, and your product costs are 22. So you're on a contribution value of 4 rupees negative. So that's what the equation. And then you have your fixed overheads, SG&A, which is 25. So your EBITDA is minus 29. Now the question is that is this your stated equation? Is it your current equation? Or the reality is something else? Like, for example, hey, it's not 22, it's 25. Cost of acquisition is not 60, it's 72. Product cost is not 22, it's 28. Contribution value is minus 25. And then your SG&A is at 38 on that level of revenue. And then you have a minus 63. These are all illustration. The point here to notice out here is that look at the right-hand side. So you have 4 variables which are jumping up and down, and they're highly unpredictable, highly volatile. So how do you really catch hold of this animal? How do you really arrive at if your EBITDA is minus 63, and if you go on a cash basis, it could be minus 65 or minus 67. So is that the money that you're looking at arranging for? Is that the money that you need each month to run the business? So I think the key pointer out here, this can become very, very messy. So, and it becomes extremely difficult. So what are we iterating and optimizing on? We can't be like, everything can't be in air, right? So is it the cost of acquisition? It can go, of course, there's a lot of journey, go to market, customer adoption, revenue conversions. So is it the COA? Is it the pricing model? Or is it the delivery model? Is the pricing model not formed up, and hence what you're seeing vis-a-vis what you planned is very different. The costs are very different, and even the fulfillment and the delivery. So I think this something needs attention, and everything can't be volatile. Everything can't be jumping out. It'll be extremely difficult for you to iterate and improvise and get the key variables on board. So this is something we learned. So maybe we were guided by a great set of investors, board members in our early stage, but looking into these things really made things, and then you need to work on them. So there is a thinking, and this is a very widespread theory, because we always see the success stories and the big fundraise and the big scale up, but what we don't see, even those companies, what they would have gone through 3 years, 4 years prior to that. So the whole myth is that, scale will solve everything. I think if there's one truth that I never believed in and I learned the hard way, this was this, that scale doesn't solve everything. It just amplifies the shit. If it is already in a shitty and a messy position, it's just going to amplify. The higher the scale, you'll have more of that. And if you have a good model going, higher the scale, you'll have more good things to deal with. So I think this whole thinking that, once we reach scale, this equation will get corrected, all the variables will fall into place, will not be the scenario. Yes, your cost of acquisition, which is a significant variable, which is where the money goes into, that of course will get optimized, get better with better G2M, better customer adoption and customer understanding and repeat and renewals, depending on your business model. So this point is going into saying that, do you have an equation? Do you have a stated one? Do you have a current one? Are you seeing it maybe a month at least every day? And do you really know what is coming out of that in terms of how much money you need to burn to stay alive? And if not, so there's a time to at least revisit this. The second part we were talking about is that cash is fine. That's what the equation might be holding good. But when do you realize it? So cash has a speed, it has a velocity. And here actually the lot of dissonance or the gap comes from our practical experience of running a startup and what we might have made those projections. Spreadsheets do lie, and cash at bank could be misleading because, and hence it's very important to decode the real burn. So for example, you might have a cash of, let's say, 10 crore in the bank, and your payables to your supplier is 13 crore and it is 90 days old, and your receivables are 60 days away, and that you can't say that I have 10 crore of cash left and my monthly burn is 1.5 crore, so I have 6 months of runway left. So I think this is not a rocket science. Whatever I'm sharing, maybe I'm accentuating and articulating them for you to relook into some of these things. So it's very important to decode the real burn. Now let's look at it this way. Okay, your gross revenue comes after 90 days, right? That's the velocity for that cash. So you sold today, but you'll actually get the cash after 90 days. And let's assume the returns and refunds you have to do within 7 days. right? So you haven't got the money, but you're refunding money. And then let's look at your cost of acquisition. So whatever way, channels, commissions, performance marketing, digital marketing, depending on your business model. Let's assume you have to spend after 30 days. And let's assume the product costs you have to spend after 45 days, which you may not have liberty. There are categories where your product is spent on the day the product is delivered. So it could be T is equal to 0, or T is equal to 5, or T is equal to 7. So, I mean, look at it. So there are various elements. Something is coming in, something is going out, and they have a different timing. So this looks a little scary. It's not like that. It's about not that you have to get everything to the decimals, or they don't have to be run perfectly, but having this understanding and the nuances, and hence what needs to change in your contracts, in your approach, in your business modeling, in your supplier arrangements, that needs to be thought through. So you might be at contribution value of -4, even that -4 might become -15 because different way the money is coming in. And then you have your SG&A and the wedge bill, salary, all that stuff you put first, right, at the beginning of the month. And it could be T is equal to 7. So whatever net cash position you're talking about burn, in how many days, that burn you're going to experience in how many days? So imagine your equation will show you need around, let's say 50 lakhs to run a month, but that 50 lakhs is happening after 3 months. So and then how does that 5 crore, 4 crore, whatever money that you have put on to run the business, how will that shift? So this is, very, very classical stuff. You are aware. It's not that everything you can change, but an awareness and a consciousness around that makes you focus on the most important variables. So velocity of revenue and expenses are different. So what is the real cash and burn now, and how much is the runway left? This is where really things go wrong. So you look at certain money in the bank, you think that's the runway left, and then you have certain burn, and then you have certain receivables, certain payables. We spoke about both the variables. And then the more you do, you land up, it hurts. So more business you do, if these equations are not favorable, you'll after 2-3 months, you have great business demand coming up, but you don't have cash to run the business. The last one is more about, what do we take as our burn? What we really, you'll be hearing those words, gross burn, net burn, and all that stuff. So not getting into the theoretical aspects of it, but look at the anatomy of a burn. So classical model, you have a revenue, you have a cost of acquisition, your product cost and fulfillment delivery cost, and that's how you arrive at your contribution value. And then you have your SG&A, all your other costs, tech, marketing, others. So I think it's a very simplistic one. Different spreadsheets, different way of putting the P&L doesn't change the reality. An entrepreneur has to run the P&L on cash and has to run the P&L only on cash. And that's the only way to manage and run a company. Those EBITDA, provisioning, gross margin, net margin, those are good conversations in terms of building the margin profile. The truth is, the cash that you need to stay alive for another month and to generate some outcome is what matters. Now, the tricky thing is, look at it. We have a cost of acquisition, and there's also another line of marketing support. There could be a commission out there, and there could be a telesales support team, which is doing the sales. And there's another element, which is doing the brand marketing and your PR and other stuff, which is a marketing stuff, which is building the brand. So cannot be assigned to the revenue. So you can always put it down and put it under SG&A. The point I'm trying to highlight, whichever way you put it really doesn't matter. The fact is, it is a burn. It's a fixed burn. So similarly, if you look at it, your fulfillment and delivery cost, and then again, you have something under the SG&A and under others, your service delivery, assistance center, call center. So is service delivery incurred without delivering the service, for example, then isn't it a fixed burn? How is it linked to the revenue? So I think the gap out here I'm trying to put here is that you really need to identify what is linked to revenue and what is not linked to revenue. And this can define your true burn. That's your gross burn. So it's not what is SG&A. It might be another 5, 7, 8, 10% coming from the top, which will be adding to your monthly burn. And this is where the planning and the cycle, everything can go horribly wrong. So we spoke about three things. One, your unit economics, your stated current one, which are the variables you're focusing. Everything can't be on air. Second, we spoke about the velocity of the cash, at what rate it's coming and recognized at your end. And third, we spoke about how and what are you counting as your burn really. So I think if you combine these three, that will give you the correct picture assessment of what is your real burn and cash of running the business. So what is my real gross burn? Is it SG&A? The answer is no. It's SG&A plus, plus, plus. And this sounds simpler, but the easier way to solve this, the way I used to ask this question and always ask this question, the thumb rule is that if I switch off the acquisition engine, what is consuming the cash, right? So if I switch off the entire acquisition, if I bring down the acquisition to zero, what is the gas that I will consume? So what is the cash I'm going to burn? And that will solve this whole perspective of where you are classifying, where you are putting, all these things will come out of that. And just ask yourself at zero revenue, what is the cost of operation? So that is your real burn. And that is not variable. So you can't say that I'll sell more and hence I can spend more. This burn is given. And that's kind of a thumb rule which really helps to look into that, to arrive at what is the real anatomy for your actual burn. So it leads to the first section where we say, are we really measuring the real burn, and do we really know what it is? Second aspects which are dependent on your business model, your category, or the company that you're trying to build, the brand you're building, the category you're operating, is basically is there what's the category, and the demand maturity really decides a lot. It's not internal, it's external, but you have to play the game according to the need. So I think the questions to ask out here is that demand needs to be created, or is it already there? So that means, are you creating a product and solutions and services that needs creating a new behavior, or it needs shifting the current coping mechanism to a new one? And I like to distinguish between these two, because we were in a category, and we'll talk more about our business, Fun Assist. We're in a category where we're trying to create a category, and the needs were very, very latent. So there's a difference between shifting from one behavior to another behavior. That means there's a need, there's a coping mechanism, people are dealing with it, consumers need it. You're shifting beautiful to a great way of doing that same thing differently. That is number two. But the number one is that we're talking about creating a new behavior. For example, we launched smartphone device protection in 2012. But to the customer at that point of time in 2012, 13, was buying the phone not more important? Was he really bothered about protecting the device? So that is like creating a new behavior. So you're saying your phone must get protected. So that's a new behavior. You're expecting a new behavior. So I think this distinction is very important. And unusual optimism out here, not validated by consumer dipstick, consumer hypothesis, could be very harmful, because that's what decides how you need to plan your expenses and investments. And the second category is demand is established and growing. And the third one is, that's a growing one. So you have to grow with the market and grow with the demand. The third one, of course, there's a large space, existing players, large transactions happening. It's like a payment gateway, right? Millions and billions of transactions are happening, and still there are new payment gateways who are coming and disrupting it. So you're making an entry into that. So this is a very, I think, important construct, especially depending on which category you are getting into and your understanding of your category, your reading of the market, and working with the market, working with the consumer needs, and see how is it evolving. Because we also saw that evolving. 2012, 13, we designed something till 14, 15, it was very slow. 2016, smartphone sales took off, and we could get another need established and ride on that category and provide it as an essential protection for your most important device. So I think knowing that, having that view, if you would have not known that it's going to take little time, you would have approached the business modeling and the burn modeling very, very differently. Nature of business, I think this is very obvious. I've just mentioned it for your benefit. So different business have different go-to-market, and that the variables are very different. So like direct to consumer, cost of acquisition is the core stuff. And also, is the price getting realized? Is there elasticity? Are you getting the right kind of traction? And also, at what incremental cost of acquisition the incremental scale is coming? I think the last one is important one. And sometimes in the temptation to show traction in the numbers, we will talk about more, we can go overboard and spend 3x, 5x. So first 100 customers you're acquiring at X, next 50 you're acquiring at 3x, the next 50 you're acquiring at 5x. So is the market really ready for your product? Or is the proposition somewhere lacking? Or are we talking to the right consumers? Those are the things which needs to be looked into. And rather than just scaling up the burn to get more customers. And similarly, if it is B2B2C, it's long partnership channel and readiness and willingness. What I meant by that, readiness and willingness of the partner to start doing your business. So they might sign up and not do anything for 1 year. So I think, some of our learnings dovetail well into this. And the third aspects in B2B2C is that who is controlling the execution? Who sells to the customers? Is it you or is the partner? So how are those designed, and how those are, kind of dependent, interdependent, or independent? That really decides. You might have everything going, you might have 50 partnerships and may not be generating any revenue out of that. So I think I'm not saying anything very, very unique or different. I'm just saying being cognizant and being aware, being able to predict the worst case scenarios always prepares better. B2B, we know it's about pipeline, distribution, lead time, and the final revenue, then the receivables and the credit period, and final cash coming into your really bank. So it's a long cycle. So the second point where we are heading to is that you have really taken a lot of time, effort to nail your business model design. But have you really designed your burn model? So we spoke about the dimensions that we need to take into consideration, and this needs to be thought through. You may not be able to execute it exactly the way it is, but a high level perspective on how this works and what are the dynamics, what are the variables, that's going to be critical. And most of the time it might get too late to start this whole process of re-looking into this engine. The third dimensions we are talking about is what is the nature of the business and what stage you are in. I think maybe if you've already got traction, you've got the product market fitment, your consideration for managing burn, investment, scale-ups will be very different from a company which is just trying to figure out the product market fit, or even go to market, or the B2B2C or D2C, or what model they're looking at. Those are the iterations we go through in the early stages, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 quarters to figure out, right? So at what life stage you are in really matters. So there's, and there are two variables only. How well is demand established for you? In the sense, can you see that pipe through which customers are coming in? And you have seen it for last 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and you're seeing, yes, it's looking repeatable. The size and scale could be very different. It could be 100 customers, but are you able to repeat those 100 the next month? So how well is demand established for you is not always about the size of that demand, but it's about the repeatability of whatever you have got and how you're building on top of it. And go to market. I mean, how are you accessing your target group? How are you getting your customers? which channels, which way of acquiring them. Is that really established for you? Do you have a good fix? You might have tried 7 ways to reach out and 2 things are working, and that you have at least 2 GTM, right? And then you can be able to be confidently invest into those. So I think these are the things which come a little later in the journey. But I mean, this will be very unique depending on your journey, your company, opportunity. You'll be biting them in. This goes into the decision in terms of when to invest, when to go slow, and maybe when to press the accelerator. So that's the point, like press the accelerator, apply the brakes. Now, coming on to what did we learn, and I mean, like anything, like those 3 questions we asked. What are the 3 things we could have done differently? How to manage my cash differently? How to manage my time differently? How to manage my team differently? And this will always be the answer. It's an iteration. So only better awareness and sensitivity to some of the important variables prepares us better. So I think. Combining all that stuff, if we have to kind of put a snapshot for you, a demand profile of your category or the business is important. So if you look at One Assist, the demand profile is important. It was when we launched the consumer insighting we were looking at protecting devices, and we are looking at protecting payments against frauds, credit card, debit card fraud. So very simply, the focus was things that you carry with yourself. You carry your wallet, you carry your mobile. So the whole vision and the journey started with saying, we'll be one platform to assist and protect in case anything goes wrong with this, and we help you get going if things go wrong. So at that point of time, a lot of it was a latent need. I mean, this was not explicit need. Like I said, people are evaluating Android, and there was a lot of worry around data, privacy, all that stuff. So it was a long back journey. So at that point of time, it was a completely latent need, and we acknowledged it. I think it was important to do that. So we realized that it will be more like working with the category to create the category and shape the category. It sounds very glorified when we say that we are on a category creation role, but if you don't define what the brand is going to play, and if you don't define the task that the brand is taking on itself, you will get the strategy wrong. So it is good to have said that to ourselves. Hey, we have this responsibility. We do walk along, see along, and understand from our customers, and then take the journey forward. And of course, so we knew that its early stage will be slow adoption and traction. So these things give enough insights into how should we go about managing our expenses and managing our burn model. So one is the demand profile we spoke about. The second model, of course, we spoke about in detail is the go-to-market. So we knew that we are talking about large set of customers. So we need to go through partnerships who really, like banks issue credit cards, banks issue debit cards, and customer wants to protect them. So there's a meeting point. There are OEMs who are manufacturing smartphones. There are retailers who are distributing smartphones. There are e-com players who are distributing smartphones. There are telcos who are providing, plans, and not only telecom plans, also providing device care programs. So the whole approach was that B2B2C partnership and distribution-led outreach and acquisition. Both have the pros and cons. I'm not going into that, but we are very clear that since you are creating a new behavior and shifting a new behavior, it will be good to ride with somebody, good to work with large partners who are in the core segment and ride on that behavior. So I think that is something which really held good in terms of the choice of business model of go-to-market. The third one was, I think for us, it was very tricky. I mean, if you look at it. So in your journey or in your proposition, customer value prop, is it one value prop or there are multiple stuff that you're offering? And this is not an easy one unless you really dig into it and ask those hard questions, and then the core team spends time on it. So what exactly are you offering the value prop? So if you look at it, like we have One Assist for mobile, for wallets, and for home appliances. So it's one platform for assistance in protection, and the way it's now looks like it's protecting your digital and device life. So see the variety. We are talking about appliances, gadgets, we're talking about device, data, and then we are talking about financial transaction, protection, cyber, and other stuff. So I think we had the challenge that we actually had three different DNA and characteristics to all these three categories of value proposition. But it ties in together. Why? Because One Assist is one platform to protect your most important belongings, your valuables that run your day-to-day life. So that was a theme, and it connected well. And I think that hypothesis held good. But this is really a challenging one, because then how do you manage the burn? So are you going to follow a different burn strategy for the device protection category? Are we going to follow a different burn strategy for the home appliances category? The answer is yes. So what it meant, we adopted a low burn design for gradual adoption for the first couple of years. We really need to get the partnerships, get the product right, get the consumer experience right. And then we identified when have we really got the GTM, we got the riding the carrier, I spoke about it. And maybe now will be, so we got into that. And once we got that, then we went deeper and accelerated and pressed the accelerator in some of these categories. And yeah, I mean, step up the burn only if you have established G2M. I mean, there's no point if you have 100 rupees, there's no point in putting 20 rupees in 5 ways of go to market and then burn that entire 100 rupees and not come out of with anything. So, there is always a pressure to do things not sequentially, but in parallelly. But as long as it's stripped down, as long as it's MVP, as long as it's experiment, it's all welcome. But you can't be kind of going and committing money into a particular go-to-market if it is not delivered at least 2 months, 3 months, some traction. And what's the hurry? Finally, what's the hurry? I mean, you're building a great value proposition. You're building a great company. And if it is really solving a real problem, I think, I mean, my views are very different from many entrepreneurs out here. If you're really solving a good problem and you're delivering it the right way and delivering the customer promise, you will catch up. You will catch up on your speed. It could be slow now, faster later, and then it might be exponential. Yeah, I mean, all these things sounds as if like I know it all, not at all. I'm just one of you, maybe a little ahead in the journey, and I've gone through tons of mistakes, tons of experiments, and we definitely got a couple of things right. One, we understood our different products will have a different cycle of scale up, and I think we got the B2B2C model right. So these are the few things which really helped, and these are by conscious decisions in the very early stage of the company. Now, what are the traps? I think we'll talk about a few of them. So traction actually is a trap, because there's a lot of emotions involved, in traction. That's really the whole existence also, come to think of it. Who doesn't want his products and services to be picked up and loved by customers? And last week, 5 people bought, this week 20 bought, and next week 100 are going to buy. It's very exciting. It's very exciting. And that's what we are sweating it out, blood and sweat, everything for that. So I'm not saying it's not good. It's really good. It gives a lot of energy, passion, conviction. But we really need to understand the color of the traction. Is it really the traction? Is the consumer really adopting you? Or are you selling something else? Like without commenting on a particular category, but we saw what Wallet sold, right? Wallet sold cashback. And where is Wallet and what is solving now? Now real payment ease, the whole multiple options, the UI, UX, all that is so how the category shifted. But what did they sell for first 3-4 years? It was cashback. So is it real adoption and how much money you have to burn to do that? I'm just thinking of one example so that you guys can relate to that. So I think deciphering that, interpreting this is a really an insightful founder's job, and that cannot be delegated. No Mancom team, no strategy team can give you answers to that. If you're a couple of the you founders like Gagan and I, in our case, we have to keep revisiting and keep discussing what is real and what is frothy and what's not sustainable. So, hey, imagine this is just a small scenarios. Like there are 2 scenarios, 1 and 2. One is revenue. I mean, you can see it on the positive side, and on the negative is the burn. And again, the first thing we spoke about, first half an hour, we spent time, what is the real burn? And is it really only the way you have classified your Excel and the P&L reporting? Is that the burn? But actually, it's the burn when you spend, when your revenue is zero, how much money you're burning, right? So I think first thing we go wrong there. And once you have identified, you look at it. So there's a path one and a path one is a widening jaw, and you don't know also. I mean, if you reduce the burn, how will the revenue drop? The blue line. So imagine you reduce the burn next month. How will that revenue behave? I think that is important. And then you have on path two, which goes like this. Yeah, I mean, anybody will say, hey, this is slow, the traction is less. And that's what I meant by traction is a trap. You really need to find out what is real, what is really building the right consumer adoption and building the right scale for you. The quality of the business is very different. And you're also solving some of the things rather than early in the journey, rather than postponing those bigger issues, consumer experience, product fitment, pricing fitment, much later in the journey. By that time, you would have consumed a lot. So what to watch, like what I have seen and what we have learned, what's the cost of the scale up and measuring, and especially if you're bootstrapped and you're managing with very family and friends kind of fund, obviously you need to be very choosy about it. So measuring the real burn is important. And my take always has been that, I mean, there's a gross and net we spoke. Just to quickly to explain, gross burn is all your total expenses. Like I said, if your revenue is zero, and net burn is what happens when you earn some revenue, you make some margins out of that, and it sets off your gross burn. So you say, okay, I'm doing 100 rupees revenue and 10 rupees is my margin. My total burn is 60 rupees. So 60 minus 10, 50 rupees is my net burn. So hey, I'm getting better. So next month I'll do 150 and I will get 15 rupees as my net margin. So my net burn will come down from 60 to 55. So can I plow back that 5 rupees, right? So that's very intuitive, logical. The answer will be a big yes. But I think the hard one to look into this is that, is it getting established? Is it really scalable? Is it holding good? 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, good enough. So I think take the hard one. Take the hard one means take the gross burn and keep an eye on that, not on the net. Revenue might go up, revenue might come down because you're still iterating, still experimenting. That's the way it will flow. And step up only when sure. It looks like a very definitive statement. I like to modify that word. It doesn't mean that you're sure in the sense you're seeing a repeatability, right? I mean, it's not about the numbers, it's about the repeatability. I mean, if you're seeing something is holding good, like we discussed the GTM, and it's repeating at a value of X and maybe growing 5%, 3%, 10% every month, that's a great scenario to be in. And some of these inputs are more influenced by our learning, which like we were in a low burn, low adoption category. This is really very, very critical. So you can't change the consumer behavior, the coping mechanism overnight. So investing money to incentivizing and pull them into another way of doing things takes time and it is not sustainable. So the question to ask is that, hey, do I show great traction, get my next fundraise going, and many such good things happening for me, and then go to the 3x growth and then the 5x? Or whatever I'm saying is it real? Is it sustainable? Can I repeat it, maybe in a lower scale? And can I die another day? That's a choice you have to make. In the early stage, this is a very important and a tough one. And that's why traction can be a big trap. The other one is, I think it's very classical, like traps of perfection. So I need to build everything to win the world so that I differentiate, stand apart, and make it perfect so that everybody comes to me. And that's how I'm changing from the way people are doing things to my way of doing things, or our product or our solutions. So that's about, look at this curve. See, I think just focus on this. How is the burn happening? Burn is looking like a step function, right? Let's say you put 15 engineers to develop your product, right? And then you have to put another 30 engineers to develop the next version of the product. So these are investments, these are steps. So they're step functions. So you come and boom, you hire, put them, you start burning, and that's your step function. So burn is going to be step function. And look at the revenue, right? You make it happen, get it ready, and then you get, depending on your, again, business model. If it's D2C, you get it ready, you start getting business tomorrow. If it is B2B2C, you get it ready, go to partners, align partners, do the tie-ups, and then blah, blah, blah execution. Again, if it is SaaS, B2B, again, you can start selling those services once they're ready. And the whole cycle, the funnel, the pipeline, everything begins after that. So it's very important to understand, and that is where you'll see the nature of the business has a role to play. So what it means, investments are always step function. I think that's the truth, and you also know it. I mean, all of you know it. And like I spoke about, product build up, you have to invest X amount of rupees, engineering scale up, acquisition, BD team across the country, across the planet. So all these things are investments, and you have to make decisions and go ahead with that. But the truth is that the revenue is always a lag function. And the lag, the T, can be very, very painful, and it could really burn the shop. And you don't know what that value of T is, because we are discovering, iterating, trying to figure out and fix things, get better every day, and that's the way we are going. So and hence, it really needs a very, very mean and an MVP approach to building and delivering. So we also kind of used it in some of the categories where we knew the category is going to be low burn. So, I mean, are you really validating before you do 100% build? So I think my learning out here, all of us are working on MVPs and all, but we just get carried away at times, because your largest partner will come and tell you, hey guys, you build this feature and I'm going to do 10x, right? And now that's something that you have to take an answer. You have to consume it. You have to decide what is the validation of that and how is it going to work out. So can you build the bells and whistles as we get paid? Again, that's what is coming to the end. The disclaimers is that all our journey, all businesses, all brands, all business that we're building is very, very unique. Each business is unique. Cash or burn management, what we discussed today, is a very boring topic, but it's very important. It doesn't create huge success, but it builds survival. And it definitely increases the probability. That's my take on this topic. And I think the accidents on the way are basically on the last one. Like I said, hope is not a strategy. Can't hope scale next month ho jayega and it will get corrected. And my burn will get, oh, I'm spending this much, but 3 months later it will come down. It'll look like this, and I've got enough money to run for next 9 months. So I think this is something that we need to be very, very careful and be brutally critical about the KPIs, measure the right thing and get it right. And hence burn really demands action. Thank you guys. And now we can open it up for questions. You can raise your hand or put it on the chat box.
We have one question in the chat box.
Yeah, how do we get better at managing cash if you're not great with numbers? Yeah, I think this is something which will happen very intuitively, and you will learn from it. I think I mean it's there's no entrepreneur, like for example, you know, I like to maybe rephrase this. So if you're not good with numbers, is not that you're not good with a business, right? You may not be good with numbers from the financial controller, that somebody that you should be having, you should be doing all that stuff and all. So you don't, as a founder, like, you have your own strength and then you have your expertise, and that's what you bring, and that's how you're building. So I think you have to supplement yourself with the kind of teams. And in all that we discussed, these are not really complex. These are just about writing on a whiteboard and with your finance team or your partner or with your core team and working out on all those things. So I think one shouldn't worry about that. If you don't have something, we need to supplement ourselves, support ourselves with that. But that awareness is important. Like the fact that you're asking this question, that is an important realization that, hey, you need somebody who can do these things for you. And that's how I will go about it. Yeah, I think good question. So I'll repeat the question for the benefit of the group. We're in a marketplace kind of business. Launching at small scale has problem of unfulfilled demand and underutilized supply. Can you please throw some light to manage this on a low burn? I think the first thing that you need to look into is the demand side and understand that demand profile, like what we spoke about from our One Assist experience as well. I think you really need to understand that. For example, if it is a large market, you are saying, so you always have to make an entry with a particular segment or a sub-segment and try to focus on that, right? And get better at that and then look into the adjacency. So I think rather than trying to get into supply, demand, both sides, I think the starting point is the demand side of the equation and the demand side of the profile. So I think identifying that which segment exactly you are going to solve for, that is going to be important. Now there are a couple of considerations. One, somebody might say, no, this is a very small segment. We should be dropping it. The answer is maybe yes. Somebody might say it's not very big, so let's go for the big. But if the biggies is there, then there are also biggies. So I think this is a call that you have to take in between. But the best way I will approach is to find out something which is a rising trend or a growth on that segment, that particular demand profile, and get into that. And in terms of coming back to the burn strategy or the cash management, I think initially you have to do 1 or 2 experiments. You can't do 50 experiments. So I think that's the key thing. First thing is to that, what you're offering is the customer really like. First thing is to, obviously, is there a demand which is reasonable, sizable for you to work on it? And second, what you're offering is there a take up? Is there a liking? Are people liking that? Are they preferring it? So maybe the first 100 customers, but what are they talking about it? That's very important. I think we just get lost between the numbers. Okay, 100 ho gaya, 150 karna hai, 200 karna hai. All that is good, very good. That hunger is always good. But knowing why this 100 came to you will give you an idea about how do you manage your burn. I hope that answers the question. Maybe I missed some questions. No. Startups were not prepared for COVID in terms of cash management and runways became smaller. What's the best way to handle cash to safeguard ourselves from such events? See, one is, one is to that, can you really scale down and survive? So I think it is, I mean, these are like very, very different recommendation, but can you really, it's like a deep winter, right? So you have to hibernate. So can we keep it open, survive longer, because this will pass and this will also throw some opportunities, but this will mean a very, very different approach. So suppose you are the scale of 5x and then doing a revenue of let's say 0.2x, and that's the kind of scenario. So can you bring that down 5x to x and maybe survive at a little bit of revenue, but you keep your consumer value prop and keep your go-to market, keep validating them, keep iterating that. So I think that is it's very tough and it's very hard, and then We have seen a lot of us going through huge challenges, and a lot of them have gone belly up. It's unfortunate, but this time will also build a great business model. So I think here, this is the time to drop the aspirations. Objective should be, how do I survive, stay course, and keep doing one thing that I was doing rather than trying to do 5 things.
We have some questions in the question and answer box, Q&A box.
One second. Can you read that for me, Sandeep?
Yeah, sure. We have one question which says, how should we manage our burn if we don't hit our revenue target and can't raise the capital as well? What factors should we consider to forecast the burn?
Okay. So, see, I think, revenue goals will not be met. Okay. So first year of our running business, proper commercial business year, we revised revenue 7 times, and every time it was downward. Okay, I mean, that's not a great story. I'm not saying that's a reference for everybody. There are many successful stories which people have hit off in the first 12 months, 24 months. So I think what if you're not meeting the revenue goals, the first thing to look into is that what is the input variable where maximum work need to go. I think that should the first decision is a strategic decision. Cash is a tactical operational part of it, right? Because so the first thing is to identify which is the area where we need to work on. I mean, what is that one thing that you should be picking up, right? So I think that will be the way to approach this problem. So the second part is that once you do that, obviously you have to recalibrate, because you assumed 100 rupees of revenue, and based on that you have planned 50 rupees of burn, and now you're saying that 100 is not happening. So then you have to get into where that 50 rupees is going and what is really absolutely essential to get maybe 50 rupees of revenue, and just focus on that and cut down very ruthlessly on the other stuff. It's like the COVID example which you're giving. So that will be my take on this. And once you start seeing some traction and it keeps moving, then obviously you can always bring back the other areas of investments.
Shurat, we have the second question, which is, the person wants to know, at seed fund raising stage, is burn an important factor for consideration by investors?
See, I think, no, this is a great question. Investors are looking at building successful, scalable companies, right? And that's why they are investing. So is burn a big concern for investors? There are different investors and different view, but that capital has to take you somewhere, right? At seed stage, well, how does it work? It works for an investor. How does it work? They're putting X amount of money so that the outcome will lead to something else in that period, whatever, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. So that money is tied into an outcome or an expected outcomes. I mean, that's a better word. That money is tied into an expected outcome. So if you're not heading towards that, then the burn discussion will happen. So that is another thing which goes wrong, because you see, there are friends and family companies. You don't have a board. You don't have anybody sitting there and questioning or asking these questions which we discussed today. And you're running and going in a particular way. You're burning. You're chasing only traction, and you're putting money, spending money, feeling good about it. So when the outcome doesn't come, then the seed stage investor will start looking into, hey, how much money is left, and will that money take you to that traction? So, and second perspective, my personal perspective is that hey, you are not running this company for the investor, right? You are building a company. You're building a good company. You want to solve some real problems for customers and be a preferred brand of choice in that category. And that's what you're building. And that's what exactly your investors also want you to do. So most of the time, there could be misalignments, but at the larger space, there's always alignment. I mean, the common interests are common.
Shubhat, we have one more question. How to predict burn while churn is very high and customer acquisition cost is high as well?
Can you just repeat that?
Yeah. How to predict burn
Hmm.
while churn rate is very high and customer acquisition cost is high as well?
I think if I'm in your situation, what I'll do, suppose I'm acquiring 100 customers, and first I like to freeze that at 100 and not chase another 50 customers and spend more money. So if I'm acquiring 100 customers and I'm losing 60 customers, I have to stop bothering about 100. I have to start bothering about 60. I think that's the first thing to pick up, because if even if you get another 50, how does it help? You're just wasting money. I mean, this is one of the very classical death trap. This is a big death trap of running out of money and not being able to see another day. I think I'll be a little hard on this to myself. So I'm okay to then acquire 10 customers, but retain 10. So the goals can change next month, saying, hey guys, why is it 60 is the churn and what is it that we are not getting right? Can we have 50 customers and retain 30 of them? Once you get it right, then from 50 to 100, 250 to 500 is your choice. How do you want to go about it? But just it's like net position. I did 100, I lost 60, so I'm with 40. So next month I have to do 50. So to cover 50, I have to do 120. 60% of it will go out, so I'll be left with 48. Those maths don't work. I mean, we are just wasting money and we are burning that cash, very valuable cash.
Hi attendees, please feel free to ask any more questions. I think we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any more questions?
No, we don't have anything.
Yeah. Hey, thank you everybody for being part of this, and most importantly, thank you for being part of Clarion Call. And we really wish you all the very best. And in whichever way we will be able to partner with you and support you with all the infrastructure, the investors, the community that you're trying to build the relationship, the starters, incubators, accelerators. So that's our delight. And the whole process is to share and grow as a community and do our best in whichever way we can be of help. Thank you so much. And once again, very, very thankful to you for being part of that. I think there is one more question or something.
Yeah, so Souvik is asking, paraphrasing, if say profit is 10% and gross burn is 90%, is this assumption correct?
Actually, there is no maths like that. There is no maths like that. See, finally, like you saw that first equation, right? Where we are focusing on the contribution value. So I showed an illustration where the first one, the CV is -4%. But I'm sure your business is not designed for a -4% contribution value or the net margin construct, right? Your business model might be, let's say, 12% or 15% or 8%, whatever, depending on the scale and size of the company. So there is no thumb rule like this, 90, 10, all that stuff. Cash is very simple. I mean, this is the money I've got. Where do I put in so that it gives me the desired outcome? And where do I stop wasting my money if it is not repeatable, if it is not scalable? So it's all about that. So there is no thumb rule or formulas, 90%, 10%, and it will be very different for different people. But just because you have money and you're just spending, please remember one thing, you're not building a great business. That means there's a lot of inefficiency and you're trying to cover the inefficiency with a lot of capital, and you're not recognizing those behavior, consumer behavior or defection or the churn or whatever it is, or you are riding on money. So which is good if you have a lot of money, but you have also seen many companies who have raised a lot of money and still couldn't take it, the brand or the company, to the stage that they wanted to. So at some point of time, you have to kind of acknowledge. So that will be my bit on no thumb rule kind of formula on this.
Yeah, sure. I think
Great. So thanks once again. Thank you, everybody. All the best. Good luck. And really pursue your dream, your passion, and whichever way as a community you'll be able to help, that will be our pleasure. Thank you so much.
thank you so much, Siva.
Thank you, Sandeep, for facilitating these. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye, everyone. Have a nice day.
Bye. Bye. Have a nice day.